Hey guys, Maniac here with GameAccess.net. Happy Halloween, and what about a Halloween review for you guys? I know I promised you guys I'd be working on it, and I'm being delayed a bit because of the hurricane and everything else. So this is probably going to take a few extra day or two for me to upload, but I just want to do the review that I promised you guys. Spirit Camera on the 3DS. Well, let's just get this all out of the way right now. I loved this game. Spirit Camera for the 3DS is a game that was published by Nintendo and developed by Tecmo Games. It is exclusive to the Nintendo 3DS. I've been told it is a part of the Fatal Frame series, although I've never really played any of the other Fatal Frame games, so I really don't know too much about them or exactly where the game places in the Fatal Frame series. That having been said, it works perfectly as a completely standalone story, and not playing any of the Fatal Frame games have not hurt me in any way because it seemed like a pretty all-encompassing story. There are 3 game modes to this game. One is the story mode, which is called the Diary of Faces mode. The other is the Haunted Visions mode, which is a connection of 3D, just cool little 3D pictures, games and stuff like that. And then there's finally the Cursed Pages, which is a collection of games that feature the Nintendo 3DS system and the AR book. The way the game works is that apparently the 3DS is not really the 3DS in this game's universe, but is actually called the Camera Obscura. Now, the way the game works is you play the game cart inside the 3DS, and it interacts with something that comes inside the game. It interacts with this little notebook, which is called the Diary of Faces. It's included in all the copies of it, and you need this in order for the game to work. There are various images in all the pages, all different kinds of stuff. And the game actually interacts with the certain pages. There are usually prompts or there are certain types of puzzles that the game is designed to react to, which is how the game responds. It can also project images on top of some of the pictures or project puzzles, so you could actually be having to hunt through the book. Now, I have heard some complaints about this, as you can see, based upon the size. They had to shrink down the size of the diary in order to fit into the game pack. I have heard some requests online that this diary should have been bigger. I can't say I would disagree with them. I would have loved if this diary was bigger, and trust me, Nintendo, if you want to sell separately like a bigger version of this for collectors or something like that, that'd be really awesome. That having been said, even though it is small, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic quality. It's made of very good paper. It really has a good feel and texture to it, and there's no mistakes really with the quality of the printing. It doesn't seem to have any problems with determining where the things are. Now, under the game's story, you have the option of starting the game, you have the option of continuing the game, and then there's a scene selection mode. The main game story will probably take you around 2 to 3.5 hours at most. Now, that actually doesn't sound like a long time, but actually for the story that the game gave, it's a really good one. It's kind of a macabre story. It did scare me a few times because it actually dealt with very, very serious subject matters. Now, there are teases and ideas about what was going on with the Diary of Faces. Over the course of the story, without spoiling anything, you're going to learn about where the history of the Diary of Faces actually came from, how you ended up getting it, and what its purpose is in this. Over the course of the game, you actually become cursed. And the whole idea is that if you don't solve this mystery, you're next. Or whoever starts playing this is next. Now, for somebody who may enjoy a game like, I don't know, a movie like The Ring or something like that, which has a whole idea behind a videotape where if you watch it, you'll be dead in 7 days and that sort of thing. For a game on this level, to actually scare the player on that kind of level, worked better for me than watching something along the lines of The Ring. And that's just a testament to the capabilities of video games in general over movies. You can't scare somebody who's watching a movie that they're going to die after like 7 days or something like that, because they're watching it passively. They're watching somebody else watch it or something along those lines. There's just no layer of, there's a disconnect there. When it comes to something like a game where you are playing the protagonist physically and interacting with the other players directly through something like the 3DS, in this manner. When the system tells you hold this in front of the camera and stuff like that, you know, you really do feel like the player. I'll be honest, better than that. And when the game tells you, oh, by the way, you've been cursed, and you see just what the system shows in the game to show you that, I mean, that level of disconnect is not there. And that, to me, actually made it really interesting and made it for a really cool game. I'm a huge fan of games or movies or television shows that kind of blur the line between reality and fantasy. Some of my favorite games are advanced reality games where you interact with things as if they're real. When Tron Legacy came out, there was a whole campaign about finding Kevin Flynn. And there was a Flynn Lives website online, which actually made it seem like Kevin Flynn was a real guy, and they showed an early picture of Jeff Bridges and everything else. Or when The Dark Knight came out back in 2008, they did a whole campaign about that, which ended with the election of Harvey Dent. I really liked how they blurred the line. In fact, actually, that campaign was also augmented by the Gotham City television shows, which aired on Comcast and were later put on the Blu-ray release. But when those aired on television, if you watched it and you didn't think anything, you didn't think anything of it, you'd think you were watching a real broadcast of something. In fact, my mother watched one of the segments of Gotham Tonight while I was watching it. I think it was the third episode, a very good episode, probably one of the best ones that they did. And when she watched one of the segments about one of the kids that was intoxicated by Jonathan Crane's fear toxin, my mother thought she was watching something real. My mother actually thought that she was actually watching a story about a bunch of concerned parents over a kid who had a bad drug trip. Seriously, it was that well made. And that's where this game, I thought, worked really well. Calling this the camera obscure and having the game react to it as if the book is real and the game is functioning in a certain way, added a cool level in games that I very rarely actually see in games. The only other times I've actually seen games, not even on this kind of level, where they stepped into reality, I think the first time I ever really saw it happen was probably when Doom 3 came out and they had the Martian Buddy website. But other than that, I really hadn't seen it. There was a game, actually, that was released back in 2000, which is no longer in service anymore, and you can't get it to work. And nobody remembers this game, but I remember it quite fondly, was the Majestic game that was done by EA, where you'd have people that would be you'd be interacting with people online through Instant Messenger, and you'd be getting phone calls, and you'd be getting faxes and things like that, where you had to solve a conspiracy theory and stuff like that. And you'd be interacting with actors through webcams and instant messages, and you'd get faxes and stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of this kind of game. And it's really cool to see the Nintendo 3DS, which is capable of doing augmented reality, work on this level, whereas the augmented reality is actually real and actually happening around you. Now, the game's controls are as follows. You play the game basically by interacting with the 3DS on this level. You hold the game up, and then you can use it along in conjunction with the Diary of Faces. Most of the time, you'll have to actually play the game with the Diary of Faces in order to make it work. You interact with the book just like you would interact with it normally by simply holding the camera in front of the certain pages and things like that when you're being prompted. You'll have to solve puzzles along those lines. When you're battling, however, when you're battling demons that may be coming out of the book, you actually have to hold the system up like this, and you'll actually have to spin around, because the gyroscopic sensors inside the 3DS are actually what controls your pitch and orientation. You're actively hunting these ghosts or spirits down and taking pictures of them. Now, if you're doing this kind of thing in public, you're probably going to look kind of ridiculous doing this. Honestly, I recommend getting a swivel chair. For a game that really paid itself on the augmented reality level, I thought, perfect way. And to be perfectly honest, as long as the gyroscope is properly calibrated, it will be pretty good at not losing your place. I did have some problems with the orientation and the sometimes, but simply recalibrating the gyroscopes, it usually just meant that the gyroscopes were not properly aligned, and recalibrating it usually would take care of the problem. Once you've beaten any level in the game, or any segment of the game, it will unlock its corresponding mode here. Now, I don't recommend playing the game under these circumstances unless you really like a particular scene, but I don't recommend doing a replay with just basically going from sequence to sequence. And the reason why is because playing it in scene selection actually does occasionally miss a sequence in the story portion of it. You'll usually miss, let's say, a cutscene perhaps, or extra segment in the dialogue. Something in the story will usually be missed. Nothing in the action, in most cases nothing in the puzzles will get missed. But it does make the puzzles a lot easier because it will tell you specifically what sequences and what pages directly to turn to, which in some cases it was previously a puzzle. Once you've beaten the normal version of the game, there's actually a higher difficulty called the extra mode. And I totally recommend playing that as well after you've beaten the game, because there are some things in that game that it just has a little bit more in depth than what you would have gotten in your first playthrough. It unlocks an alternate costume for one of the spirits, which is really cool, preferred over their normal costume. The other one is that it will unlock a whole new diary entries and things like that you can go searching for, so you can learn more about the game and the game's world. Some behind-the-scenes extra content in the story and some of the characters' motivations and stuff like that. So if you enjoyed the game, definitely play it a second time for all of that. Then finally there's the photo ops and battle mode, which you'll unlock when you beat the game for the first time. In here, the way it works is you have multiple options. You'll be prompted to actually take pictures of the game on certain pages in order to take on a character. What you can do from then is make a character show up and decide to do battle with them. Now the cool thing about that is that actually you can do higher difficulties than you can normally do in the game's story. The downside of that is that they are much, much, much harder. And you will unlock all of these when you beat the previous ones. So if you just want to get through all of them and unlock all of them, then simply just play them on the extra difficulty. However, you have to basically unlock all the characters in Nightmare mode in order to get the last possible unlock in the game, which is the Princess Peach dress. There are also a lot of mini-games and things like that. Over the course of the game, you'll play some mini-games with the story. And you might think, oh, this would be cooler to play more. The cursed pages is probably my favorite section of the game, if not the photo ops and battle stuff. And the reason why is because what it can do here is it can actually take some of the hardest segments in the game, or some of the hardest puzzles in the game, and makes them even harder. Some of the puzzles are actually a lot of fun. The haunted doll doesn't actually usually appear in the final version of the game, but Four Strange Masks does. The Boy in the Book is another cool one that does appear in the game, and it's only unlocked when you beat the haunted doll. And the Spirit House only unlocks when you beat the Boy in the Book. Now the cool thing about these is that they all have level difficulties and stuff like that, and actually they do have unlimited modes. So plenty of replayability on them, and trust me, like I said, they get very hard very quickly. So you'll probably have, once you beat the game's campaign, you'll probably turn to this for extra replayability, and trust me, you'll get it here. As for the Haunted Vision section, it allows all kinds of cool different stuff, whether it be the spirit photography, where you can actually take pictures and have just cool stuff in the background. The spirit check, where you can actually reveal spirits that are behind you and stuff like that. And the spirit challenge, which is kind of like a cool little mini game where it takes a spirit that might be inside you and has you do battle with it. The cool thing about that is that you can actually take pictures of yourself and it will turn into a spirit where you'll battle it. It's actually pretty easy though. Most of those battles are at a very low difficulty, so it's just for fun. Now, if there were some problems with the game, I would be the first to admit them. The first off is that the game requires a lot of light. Now, how much light does it usually require? Well, there's no flash on this thing, at least not in this version of it. So you can't just have it actually would have helped if Nintendo included some kind of a flashlight, just like you would normally have on a flash on a camera, or like a light in front of your phone or something along those lines. But since it's not offered, it has to work directly on autofocus. Now, a room like this, even during the middle of the day, and I have like 5 or 6 lights going on, actually isn't enough lighting. You might think that your room actually might have enough light, but to be perfectly honest, you actually might not. Here, watch this. These are 4 lights on in my room right now, and spread out pretty much. And even this camera is having trouble packing them up. If I don't turn on my secondary lighting, you can't even see me at all. It's twice as worse on the Nintendo 3DS's camera. Now, the problem with the lighting is that by having the lighting being so difficult in some cases, it might have problems picking up certain pages in the diary. And you might not know if the camera is having trouble reading a certain page in the diary while you're trying to play because you either turn to an incorrect page or there's just not enough light. And that is a prevalent problem, actually. When the system works, it's fantastic. Where it can actually superimpose images over these things in certain cases, or project spirits over on top of the pages, which makes it feel like, oh my god, there's really a spirit, only the 3DS can actually pick it up. Really cool on that higher level. But when there's not enough light, the effect wears off, or the camera will actually, or the 3DS won't be able to show the effect. So you'll be watching like halfway through the effect, and then all of a sudden the effect will stop because the autofocus is shifted, is shifted darkness, and you won't see the whole effect, or the effect will be obscured. There's also another problem that because this is a book, and you can see it right here, because this is a book, sometimes it doesn't lay flat, and some pages actually will close itself up, and then that's true for any book. But you need this book to be flat in order for the system to work. And every once in a while you might be on a certain page, and you're seeing an effect on it, and a page will shift, and then the effect will be lost, and you have to reorient the book. Now, if you're holding the Nintendo 3DS, you might not be able to hold the book down. That's a bit of a problem. That can sometimes throw you off the the reality of the situation. But like I said, that's a 3DS problem. But to be perfectly honest, when it works really well. Okay, so what overall did I think of this game? I loved it. I really did. I was happy I picked it up. Now, I understand that the problem with a lot of people are going to have with it is the fact that the game is short. Retail for this game is $40. That's normally what you'll find for it if you can find it in shelves. I don't recommend getting it used because you need the Diary of Faces in order to make it work. And in all likelihood, if you buy it used, you're probably just going to get the game cart. It's not going to work by itself. I have heard some people may be able to print out or update, larger copies of the Diary of Faces at Kinko's using PDF files or something along those lines. If you can do that, by all means, do it. And Nintendo, seriously, if you want to sell the Diary of Faces separately, that would be really awesome if you did, because that I thought would work really well. As for how I would recommend it, with all the extra content that's included with it, the unlockable content, the game's unique story, the game's unique control system, and everything else, I would probably recommend that this game only if the game was probably priced at around $20. Now, I understand that a lot of people are going to say, why? Why would you recommend picking up the game at that price? And that would have to be given content. The game is great for what it is, but because it's so short, I can't recommend picking it up at the $40 price. When I picked up this game, I think I paid about $22 for it. Maybe I paid more, I don't remember. I got it off Amazon, I think. I honestly forget how much exactly I paid for it. I might have been paid $30 for it. But I recommend getting it when retailers bump down the price to about $20. It's really worth it at that price because, given the game's content, a $20 value would be perfect for it. $40 is kind of pushing it, but you know what? If you can't wait that long and the game really does interest you, by all means pick it up at the current price it's at. Because don't let reviewers tell you that you shouldn't play this game under any circumstances. If you're really interested in playing it, you should play it because it is a lot of fun actually. It's kind of short, but it's got some extra content that you'll probably be messing around with for a while, and it's just a good game to have on the 3DS library. Hopefully, if there's a firmware update or something along those lines to the 3DS, it might actually improve how the camera works. Or maybe down the road Nintendo will release an updated 3DS with a flash bulb. It does have the Nintendo quality to it. It has a lot of unlockable content, and it's worth playing and replaying a few times. I don't recommend playing it in a car because you will need to turn 360 degrees, but you know what? It's fun for playing at home. It's fun for playing outside. That sort of thing. I played it on the 3DS. In case you're curious about the 3DS 3D effects, worked pretty well. I have been talking to some reviewers and stuff like that, and they all said the same thing. Something about the 3DS XL, because it has the larger screen, it makes the 3D effect much easier. I haven't had any complaints about things like headaches and stuff like that. And this game's 3D effects were pretty good. I got to give it that. So that's my review of it. Pick it up if you're a 3DS or a 3DS XL owner. I would recommend picking it up at the price of $20. If it falls to that price, and you really are interested in the game, you have no excuse not to pick it up. It's a lot of fun to play. Nintendo, try to make and release separately a larger version of the Diary of Faces. I know it will work on a larger version if the scale is proper. So, until next time, guys, this is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Happy Halloween. Over and out. By the way, you're going to be doing a lot of this. I'm not even joking.